live?
We should be. It says going live. It says you are live. Uh, okay, I see us live.
Let me see on because sometimes if it's not going to the okay. All right.
Uh,
I see it live. Okay, yes, we are. My bad.
okay,
My bad.
I hit the
We're
live
live.
button. Okay, I hope it's working.
Yeah, I think it is.
Uh, all right, let me pop out this chat.
Indeed.
So, uh, ladies and gentlemen who are watching, uh, I have the chat open right now, and I'm looking at it, and you guys can feel free to interact with us for the moment. I'm gonna put on a timer here in a few minutes, and during that time, me and Hake are just gonna talk, and I'm not gonna be looking at the chat at all. So don't even bother to talk to me or to Hake at all. We're just gonna try to focus on the conversation and try to have a productive conversation. And then when the timer goes off, we'll come back to the timer, and then we'll give you guys our undivided attention for a little bit, and then we'll call it a night. So, if you guys have anything you want to say, uh, any thoughts, go ahead and send them now. And in the meantime, Hake, how did you feel about tonight's debate?
I don't know, but I did have a sense that he really brought the facts, and I could have gone in and done more research, done any research, to attempt to counter some of that stuff, and maybe I could see myself going in and looking at some of the stuff that he's looked at with a critical eye and have an answer for what he's talking about, because I just don't know what those studies that he's said. But they were very interesting, and I don't deny that there's some facts to them. I'm okay with what I did put out. I felt that I put out everything that I wanted to say. So,
okay. So I don't see any pertinent messages right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and start our timer now. I'm gonna stop looking at the chat now, guys. So just give us 30 minutes to talk, listen in, and hopefully you guys enjoy it. And we'll be back to paying attention to you guys in a little bit. So there's our timer. If you do, let's say you pick one of the studies he mentioned. Let's say you go back, you look at this debate, and you just pick the first one, and you say, okay, I'm gonna dig into this study, and I'm gonna just really see what's going on here. And you do all that. You do your due diligence. You read the whole thing. You look into the guys behind it, and you make sure there's no financial funny business, all that stuff. You're satisfied that the things that are written in that study are at least not being intentionally represented or something like that, right? What would that do to you? What would that do to your mindset?
It wouldn't change my mind that gay is okay or that they should be adopting, but I would be able to accept that, let's say, like one of the suspicions. Okay, let me try to answer it without qualifying it, because I don't want to speculate about what I would find, at least not at first. I would be able to acknowledge the physical well-being of the kids, let's say. Let's find out that it's true. I would be able to acknowledge the physical well-being of the kids, and the that has a lot to do with their sense of well-being and their ability to live. Living is important. Everybody wants to live. The cat. I always tend to want to acknowledge the truth and just be quite fair-minded and straightforward. And I may realize that this aspect of it may not be wrong, but this aspect is. And I would try to pick apart what's going on. He did acknowledge that tends to be that the kind of people who adopt are the higher quality people, whether they are, or higher quality, if you will, whether they are twisted in some way or other. And they tend to be more well-to-do and responsible and stuff like that. So it would make sense that and very commonly the gay community thrives more in a spoiled, what I call a spoiled, well-to-do culture that allows for that to happen without them, you know, getting lost by the wayside in some way. So I speculate that what I would find would be, go ahead.
Let's pause right there for a second. So certainly gayness existed in biblical times, right? Otherwise they wouldn't have written about it, right?
Yeah, it wasn't. I heard from other like Christian gays that it wasn't considered an identity. It was not considered a committed relationship like a marriage. It was considered a something that they got into. They didn't get into the identity thing, but yes, that the act, the practice, if you will, did.
So why do you think it happens? What, in your understanding of reality and how things work, why do you think it happens at all? It can't be America, you know, it can't be anything modern.
Right. I think that you'll notice that as you get old, I notice that as I get older in life and I go through more things and you cross different lines, you start to, in whatever you're doing, you cross one line and then you start to cross another line and another line and another line. So that can happen with people who start out straight as a rooster and then end up going in that direction. And then there's also, I think, it's all kind of speculation, but
well, hold on. Starting off straight as a rooster,
like we get kind of perverted.
You think that you could
more and more
that?
Perverted in?
Do you think that could happen to you? Is that like, I'm just saying, like,
right?
Is there some hypothetical set of circumstances that you think could happen to you that could make you attracted to men legitimately?
I think, I don't know. I don't want to say yes and I don't want to say no. I suppose that it is possible for me or a person, a man, to be, and I think that I think the homosexuality thing is like a symptom of a root evil within that infects us, like imposed by the parents, or usually their parents are the first ones who wrong us, right? And you know, when people, young people go through puberty, they get attracted to things, and we have a society that's more and more permissive, and you know, like pornographic type stuff is on the rise, and so I feel that it's one perversion of many. It's one symptom of many. People have their issues that they can't control and can't seem to overcome.
Yeah. So just like when we had the racism discussion, this is another manifestation of, maybe back up a little bit. Would you say that hate is a manifestation of evil also?
Yeah. It may be the root. I'm not sure, but yeah, it is.
Yeah. Because like you don't want to say that racism is a thing, you want to call that hate, but then hate is really just evil also, right?
Yeah.
So really everything that is negative in the world is just some manifestation of evil in your model, right?
Yeah, like evil will twist you to be away from what you're supposed to be.
Okay, I'm understanding that. So have you heard of the Euthyphro dilemma?
Repeat that. I don't think I've heard of it.
I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it right. I'm repronouncing it from all the times I've heard it. The Euthyphro dilemma. Is God good because is good because God says so, or is it good because God is good?
Right. I have heard of that dilemma. Yeah.
So how do you answer that?
I do suspect, it's partly why I was hesitating it a little bit. I don't know if you picked up that I was hesitating at outright calling like homosexuality and these things evil.
Yeah.
I would kind of say it's not right. because I think that we're kind of at a loss to define what evil is. I know some intellectuals get close, maybe, but I think that we are at a loss to define good and evil. And a lot of the Christians may get a little arrogant or go overboard or go into something that's not true, not what God would even say. And I don't know whether it's from God or I don't know whether it's because God is good or it's because it's from God.
So you readily admit that you have a difficult time defining the word good.
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
There's this story about Socrates back in ancient Athens, where the gods, the proselytizers of the ancient pantheon, Zeus, Hera, and all those fuckers, right? They had their own street preachers, and they would say, the gods love us.
Wow. Okay.
It was the same kind of shit like, today. But
Yeah.
Socrates would challenge them. He's like, if the gods love us, how do you know that if you can't tell me what love is?
Yeah.
Right. And they would be, at a loss because,
Mm-hmm.
and he was just, trying to point out, like, you can't make the claim that the gods love us if you can't tell me what love is.
Right.
That's like, doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting because today we have people who say God is love, God
Right.
loves us, all the same things, right? But we don't
Yeah.
have any idea, or God is good. God only does good things and all these other things, but we don't have any idea what good is.
Yeah.
And this whole debate, debate about racism, the debate
Oh, yeah.
about trans, the debate about gay adoption, all these other debates, they're all boiled down essentially to what you define as good versus what I define as good.
Right.
So I mean, it's kind of astounding, don't you think? I mean, this word that we use
Yep.
ubiquitously throughout all of time, every
Yep.
culture has some meaning of, and like the word is so ill-defined.
Yeah.
Doesn't that blow your mind?
It does. And that's why I think not to get away from the point, but I love that. It's so true. But that's why I think that what comes to mind, and I want it to be just a side point, the love is love argument. It's not an argument. It's a persuasion
Tautology.
tactic. This
Yeah.
love is love, therefore we should accept the gay marriage and stuff like that, is such a trick of the mind because people don't know what love is, but they have this idea and they have this feeling. And they're like, oh yeah, that's, what, why not? It's very convincing for like maybe the unsuspecting, if you will, because what really is love? It's a word that gets thrown around just like good.
Yeah, right. So I mean, that's why I'm so interested in philosophy and morals, ethics, epistemology, all those things, because like I just want to know or try to understand on some level what the fuck is good, man.
Yeah.
What is it?
That's kind of why I don't know how my debate came off to the outside world, but that's why I kind of liked talking with Hunter and talking about this stuff, because a big part of it, I think, is just, if you will, the spirit and how you conduct yourself, and you just stick with the truth, love truth, and not have an ego about it. And even if you don't know a lot, just be honest. That's why I kind of like these discussions, because it does test you and it brings you another part of the world. It may expose you to another part of reality. You can learn stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So, goodness. I have my thoughts and my hypotheses and whatever, right? Some people like to define it as harm reduction,
Yeah.
or well-being, things like that. I assume you reject those kind of definitions. Do you have a specific?
I feel that those
kind
are
of...
limited. I do feel that those are limited, but go ahead.
I'm wondering, do you have like, for instance, let's just focus on one. Let's say well-being, right? Is there a specific thing that you have against that definition of good?
We can be self-deceived and, feel all is well. And, you're eating right, you're exercising, but then there's still something awry, but you still have a well-being. And so you think that you can get away with this thing that's awry, and you start to accept it as, this is right. And so I feel that it's you always have to watch yourself and examine yourself, I think.
So I think you would agree, like, whatever definition of good that we come up with, it's got to be consistent as hell, right? Like, like my opinion, whatever definition of good if there is an actual definition of good, it should be applicable to all things that we can call good. Like, it should never be falsifiable, but not falsified.
Right. Like, it's kind of like a right and wrong type of a thing. Is it right to kill sometimes?
Yeah. Like, in all contexts, like it wouldn't be something that's good back in 0 AD, but now it's not so good. Like, if somebody tells me, oh, back in 2000 BC, when they were raping and pillaging, that's just their culture, blah, blah, blah. But now we know better, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, so that tells me that morality is a real thing, and they didn't know about it back then, and now we do, right?
Yeah. Or it was just like you said, a different time, different set of circumstances that pushed them into accepting that evil, as we today accept other evils that our circumstances kind of push us into. Like we accept abortion, for example, or we accept these different things. We have a more spoiled culture, and we do all kinds of strange things that are probably wrong, that we may not even realize are wrong. And back then, it was kind of survival, maybe. I don't know. I don't know the situation, but the situations push people to making compromises on what's right, or justifying wrong as right, if you will.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I would agree that the contexts would introduce facts that shape the moral discussion in a way. Like, you have to consider all the facts before you make your moral calculus, right? You can't just consider the main principle and ignore the context, but the principle remains the same.
Right. It was still wrong.
Right.
They did. Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter what century I'm in. If I go and I take a little child and do whatever I want to it, that's evil, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
So, like, when they went in the Bible and they took the Amalekites and they spared the virgin females, right? And they don't say how old they were. I have to infer from that the vast majority of those virgins were not of the age that we normally would consider
right
of consent, right?
Yeah.
Now, back in that context, that cultural context, from a purely human perspective, right? I can say, well, they were just savages. They did what they did because they're just, humans who didn't know any better. But when you tell me that there's some kind of divine agent who's shaping these events, and they're in direct contact with him, and they know the objective truth about morality, then I expect that population to act in accordance with some kind of objective truth of morality. So certain things that are just objectively, obviously wrong, they would never do, like taking virgin girls as wives. Like, you can, like for instance, I mean, I don't know, you tell me, do you think that just because I say I'm married to you, does that mean that it's a good thing to take you?
Right. No, not necessarily. So was that on God's command that they spare the girls and take them as their wives and kill everybody else?
I mean, I believe so.
Okay.
I could be wrong. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I don't know. I have read stories of in the Bible where you have to kill everybody, the women and children, the animals, and I've heard. And so I don't know whether it was commanded by God or not. And I don't know what they may have done that was extra outside of the command of God, because they frequently did disobey, and they did frequently do stuff that God didn't say to do, on top of the stuff that God did say to do. You know, like, for example, this is for a cheap example, God told Moses to talk to the rock and water would flow to it. But instead, because he was mad, he struck the rock. So very frequently, these people did stuff they did extra, or they did less, or whatever. So I don't know. I couldn't judge the situation, whether it was from God or not.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, that's fair, and we don't have to litigate that. You know, we're just two guys talking here. But I just want to convey to you my reasoning. That's one of the biggest reasons, at least initially, for me turning away from accepting the idea that this God concept presented to me in that Bible is somehow indicative of the objective truth of goodness. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand. I follow that. Okay. Yeah.
So now I'm presented with, like, either there is no such thing as objective goodness, or I gotta go find it. You know? And I'm still on the camp of there is objective morality. There is some kind of objective morality. I like Dan Dennett, you know, I like I just saw this one thing, but you know, I do believe that. I'm not an objective relativist, but I mean a moral relativist, but I don't know. What do you think?
I follow that. You were raised Christian?
Yeah, Jehovah's Witness specifically.
Okay. Yeah, T Jump 2, whom I talked to just today on other topics. I remember he said he was raised Christian, and today he's an atheist, but he is a moral objectivist. Thinks that we're coming closer and closer to it. I think that we're going kind of haywire. I think that history goes up and down, and I think that we're headed towards maybe a down, but he thinks we're headed up and up and up. It seems like.
I'm familiar with his moral model, not terribly, but a little bit, and I do agree with a lot of things he says.
Okay. Yeah, I understand the qualms about stuff, especially in the Old Testament, and I don't really have any moral judgment on those things. Like, they don't really bother me. Maybe I haven't really thought that deeply about them, but it was kind of like what you suggested about God's command. You follow God's command. And also, I don't know if it was sanctioned by God that they take underage, young girls and, do wrong by them.
Well, I mean, if you listen to an apologist talk about it, they're going to say, they married them first, So, I mean, that makes it all better. I mean, but if you think about it in context, that doesn't make any sense, right? These are just, virgin, quote unquote, girls that just had their entire village or whatever annihilated.
Yeah.
And you're just saying, okay, now you're my wife. Oh, thank you.
Right.
What the fuck, man?
It's a hard life. Yeah.
I mean,
I don't envy that situation.
I need to see some kind of evidence of the divine, and I talk to people like you or whoever. I talk to my dad a lot. I'm trying to have them give me some kind of demonstration of that, because I'm looking and I just don't see it. But I know, what do you see divinity there, or what do you see as divine in the Bible?
When I read the Bible, the principles that are in the Bible, that I read, and some of the stories, like they and I don't know if this is real or not, but it rings true. Like a lot of the principles are just pretty deep. And they bring a sense of hope. And again, I don't know how real all of that is, but it's I've never found a reason to reject it, and at least not outright. Maybe the way I live, I've rejected it throughout my life. You know, there's a lot of like I feel like there's very few true Christians. I know that's a meme among the atheists, like true Christians, TM, trademark. But I think that there are very few people who are actually living it. And in the Bible itself, it says, you know, few will enter. And so for me, it's I do see that I do sense some truth from it, from what I read, and I don't really have any problem with you know, the miracles and the things that I don't it just plainly doesn't bother me at all. I don't think about it. I don't question it. I don't care that much.
You don't care that much.
Yeah, like I care more about life now and peace and self-respect and becoming true. Like, and I know that in my life I've not been committed as a Christian, committed to it. And so I want to be like you're searching for truth. I would like to live truth. And I feel like I see other people living it as an example. And that too can kind of give me hope, just like reading stuff in the Bible. I see them living it, like Jesse Lee Peterson and other people.
Interesting.
I see them being like a living example of, yeah, sometimes they're mistaken or things. They have their weaknesses. They're not God, but they are living it in a way that I can respect. And I see what they're saying, at least on an intellectual level, I see what they're saying is kind of true.
So you said just Jesse Lee Peterson is living a truth that you respect, that he gets from the Bible.
I don't know if he gets it from the Bible. He does reference the Bible, but he like God made us, right? So God would reveal himself in different ways to us. And I'm assuming, right? If God made us, if God is real, he made us, put it that way. And so, so like there's like, he could put his spirit in us for those of us those whom he wants to awaken. Because it seems like pretty clear in looking at reality has a lot of hell in it. Take that however you like. I'm sure you would use the term hell for how you would describe some of
That's
reality.
Fine. I understand what you're saying. That's fine.
And also in the Bible, it talks about most of the world is in hell even right now.
So what would you say is like the most, what is the epitome of that in Jesse Lee Peterson, for example, or anybody you want to talk about, if you don't want to talk about him specifically?
Yeah, I appreciate just telling the plain truth about like yes, you are wrong, and yes, you can overcome.
When he's talking to somebody else,
to me, to people.
How, like, can I ask you, how often do you hear him say that he's wrong?
I've heard him say that he realized he was wrong.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I don't know if I could say that he frequently will say he's wrong. He has said he's wrong sometimes. But like, for example, when well, that's too petty of an example. I was going to say when he talks and then the break comes and he hasn't, because we're on a timer and he doesn't end on time. And he's like, I'm wrong. But that's just lip service because he doesn't change it. Yeah. But he has, you know, his main message, his primary message is he looked at himself and realized he was wrong for being angry at his he realized that he hated his parents, and he realized he was wrong about it. And
but
so
like,
he is always examining himself.
like for example, I like to argue with people, you know,
Yeah.
obviously. I was on a Facebook group, whatever, and I was arguing about guns, and there was this an article being shared about knife violence in the UK.
Okay.
And I shared it, and somebody pointed out to me a flaw in the methodology,
Right.
and took a second look, realized, oh crap, I was totally wrong. Right.
Yeah.
And so like that's like the most recent time I realized I was totally wrong. Right.
Yeah.
Is that something that you see him do regularly?
I don't know how regular it is, but for example, he was repeating there are more decades ago, there were more blacks in jail than in college, black men in jail than in college. Everybody was saying that. He was saying it when he was like sounding the alarm about the problems in the black community. And he found out that he was wrong, and he had like a sadness about it. And so there have been times kind of like that, very similar to what you showed.
Okay. That's
like
good. That's great. You know, hats off to him for that then. You know, you got to respect that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if that comes from the Bible. It could, you know, but
to him, he's not into the Bible like that, though.
No, that's interesting.
Yeah, he says.
But
go ahead.
I just think that the Bible isn't totally devoid of truth. It couldn't be, you know.
Right.
It's written by. It
wouldn't be as popular, right?
Well, it's not just that. It was written by a people that survived for thousands of years. They couldn't survive for thousands of years if they were just totally devoid of truth. Like,
right.
Imagine a population of people that were totally ignorant of all truth, trying to survive.
Yeah.
They're just total idiots, like, and they're trying to live. Like, imagine what their book would say. Like,
fair enough.
You know, water the grass with Gatorade. They're gonna die, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, there's definitely like, for instance, what's it called? Blanking. Spare the rod, spoil the child, right?
Yeah.
Time's up, fuckers. The truth that I see in there is, if you don't discipline your children, if you don't teach them self-control, then they're going to have a fucked up life.
Right.
Right. I mean, you don't have to spank them. You don't have to hit them or, you know, be violent or anything like that. But you do have to give them discipline.
Yes.
You know? Unfortunately, like, it comes out as beat the shit out of them all the time. So now, you know, we have a country full of child abusers, but whatever. Okay. So that's our 30 minutes. How do you feel? You want to say anything else before we look at the chat again?
No, I don't have anything in particular to say. I get where you're coming from.
All right. Well, I think this was a productive conversation so far.
Yeah.
Let's see if there's anything that the chat want to say before we get out of here. If I can find it.
Oh, recently, I have one thing to mention while you're looking for the chat. I know that's distracting to do both. Esoteric reminded me. Sometimes JLP will kind of flip-flop between saying we're a Judeo-Christian country to saying we're a Christian country. And sometimes he will say he was wrong and say one, or say he was wrong and say the other. So he does change his mind. There's another example.
Okay, great. Hold on. Just opening up this document to see if anybody has said anything to us. Okay. Based America first. Someone's kitty needs attention. Yeah, I know, right? Okay. That poor guy. I feel bad for him, right? Like, poor cat.
Yeah.
Based America first. What's wrong with virgin girls as wives? Okay. So yeah, like I was trying to describe earlier, the idea that the virgins were probably most likely much younger than we imagined they would be these days, even these days, doesn't matter much, does it? The age is what we're talking about, right? And then they're being taken on as wives after their whole families were killed and being made to have sex with the people who killed their families. Esoteric says, Hake, you're staying up late, bruh. You tired?
It's only 7 o'clock, really. It does feel kind of late, but it's 7 o'clock here in Los Angeles. But thank you.
Oh, you're in LA, huh?
Yeah.
You're near Tony.
Oh, yeah. That's right. The guy I talked to last time with you.
Yeah, yeah. Len D says, this is why I can't get with the animal argument. It's not all fun and games in the animal kingdom.
Yeah, fair point. Is he talking about the animal argument that just, well, the animal argument to argue that homosexuality is natural, I guess is what he's talking about.
Yeah. So that's interesting, right? I don't know. You ready to get out of here? You mean just breeze through these?
I'm fine. I can hang with you. I'm okay. I expected on, last time we went 2 hours, so I'm like, okay, maybe another 2 hours. So I can, however long you're up for.
So unnatural. What does that mean?
For me, it means counter to the design, if you will, of our bodies, and of how the way that things are supposed to be. That's what I mean by unnatural, and that's also what I mean kind of by abnormal. It may not be as intellectually rigorous as what Hunter's was, but I say just because something is typical has become typical and accepted in the culture doesn't make it normal. Same thing with natural. It does occur in nature, but it doesn't make it natural.
Okay. So there's this argument I came up with for the atypical, right? The things that fall outside the norm that we want to try to say aren't part of the rule.
Mm-hmm.
Like people will try to say, like, transgenderism is so rare that it doesn't really count. Why are we saying that men and women aren't men and women, right? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So here's my example, right? No, you're not married, are you?
Right.
Have you ever been married?
Nope.
What's up with that? Aren't you a Christian man?
I am. And very few of some of my friends are, but I don't know. It's just, I think it's a phenomenon in the culture, but I'm part of it.
I need you to empathize with a married man right now. Very hardcore. Like, imagine that you're married.
All right.
You're a single guy, so this is going to be difficult for you. But imagine that you're heavily invested. You're 10 years in, two kids, the whole nine, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So your wife and you have had sex over the last year or so, a total of, let's say, 400 times. Okay.
Okay.
Of those 400 times, no, I'm sorry. You and your wife are married. Start over. You and your wife are married. Over the last 2 years, you and your wife have had sex. Your wife has had sex 400 times. Of those 400 times, 399 of them were with you. Is she a faithful wife?
Doesn't sound like it.
So the exception makes the rule.
Yeah. The exception makes right. Yeah.
Right. The exception makes the rule. That's it.
That way, and that's why you would say that the homosexuality is natural. Is that what you're suggesting?
So like, we like to focus on the usual. We like to say almost every human being that was ever born was a cis male or a cis woman. We don't even try to think about the hermaphrodites, the XY, the abnormalities, the Klinefelter syndrome, all these different things that happen. And we just ignore them. We only focus on the usual. So people will say things like, people are men and women, and that's it. But that's a lie. That's not the truth. The truth is, people are usually born as male or female, but sometimes we have atypicalities that come out. The exception makes the rule. If you tell me a rule that doesn't include all the natural exceptions, you're lying to me. you're telling me incomplete information. You know,
Yeah.
like
I
if you
I
tell
follow
me
what you're
that
saying.
you're my wife and you're faithful to me, except for that one time, you're lying to me. You know,
Unless you repented.
unless you
Uh,
repent. Yeah, right.
yeah, I would say those are real exceptions, and those are used by those with the gay agenda, if you will, to just like with rape and incest as the exceptions for abortion, right? To drive a wedge and muddy the waters to allow us to be loosey-goosey and just accept what are actual delusions, you know? Like, I think that the homosexuality and the transgender stuff, I think those are delusions. Somebody who's born a hermaphrodite or whatever, that's a physical issue. Whereas with these people, and it messes with their minds too, I'm sure. But with the gays and the transgenders, and especially with it becoming popular and cool to be, it's become, I'm sure you've heard that people who aren't even really wouldn't normally go that way are going that way. Though it's muddying the waters, basically. I think I've made my point. You follow what I'm saying?
I do follow what you're saying. What I want to respond to that is there may be some nuance as far as a potential social contagion factor
Right.
to the flux of the numbers. I don't know. I've heard some scientists say that, but I'm not a scientist, so I couldn't co-sign on that, right? But the brain is part of the body, right? We all start. I believe somebody said this in. I don't know if it was one of your debates, but we do actually all start out as phenotypically female when we are embryos, and it's the action of the hormones on our bodies that sex us. They cause our testes to either come out or retreat in and form into gonads of sorts.
Right.
So that's why men have nipples. That's
I remember somebody making that point. I forget which person it was.
Yeah.
And I said, no, the women are just miniature men, or anyway. But yeah, I do remember that point. Go ahead.
So like the hormones acting on our bodies and in vitro is what causes us to become either male or female, right? And if that process is atypical in some kind of way, you get something atypical, that a person that comes out atypical, right?
Yeah.
If that atypical process is strictly bound to the body, right, then you would have physical atypicality. But there's no reason why that couldn't just be in the mind,
right?
Or in some spectrum.
I follow you.
I just don't see any logical reason to say that this isn't perfectly natural. Now, if it is a delusion, there should be a way to show that. I don't know how you would do that, but there is, to me, a biological explanation for it that I understand.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt that what I argue, the spirit affects the body, the evil or the trauma or some type of deformity affects the body, and then that leads to misery. Like, you mentioned you didn't specifically say hermaphrodites, but what I call hermaphrodites, that's a form of it's tempting to call it a miserable existence. And same thing with being twisted in the sexual or gender, what I call misidentity way. These people are already kind of miserable and twisted. But
are they miserable because of who they are inside, or are they miserable because of who all of us are on the outside?
But I would say that it is both, because people are evil. Even the Christians who are reacting to it, most Christians don't know how to show real love. And also the parents are the biggest factor in a person's life, I think.
Yeah.
But they themselves, they're twisted in some way, and that itself also is a misery, and people are at a loss at how to deal with it. And I think that the push has been all too eager to accept this and push it and call it something to be proud of, when it's really, it's going like the opposite extreme of the people who are maybe killing them, outright killing them. It's gone from hard evil to soft evil.
Interesting. Well, let's go ahead and move on to the next question, because I'm not really sure how I want to respond to that right now. Where were we? Len said that, and we read that. From Anna Ash, they said, natural means anything that works naturally. That's self-referential, bro. Things like it takes a woman and a man to produce a child. That's why homosexuality is unnatural, because it cannot produce children. But then that means any couple that can't produce children is unnatural, even heterosexual couples that can't produce children, which doesn't make sense.
And that is kind of true. That is that's another misery, right? That's another like physical evil that befalls people.
Why?
Because most women, especially if they find out that they can't have children, they wanted children. And for them to not be able to have children, it's something that they're going to have to deal with and accept, So even though it's a quote unquote naturally occurring thing, it's not the way that things were designed and supposed to be. Follow that?
If a woman cannot bear children, whose fault is that?
I don't know. I don't know that it's,
or I should say, whose design is that?
It's not a design. It's a flaw, if you will.
It is not God's design.
I don't think that God made her like that. No.
Okay. I mean, I think
maybe he did, but I don't know.
I just think that if I were a Christian, I would say that it would have to be God's design, because he would have to design everything. Otherwise, how would this all work?
Well, I mean, I don't know if he set things in motion and allows us to carry on and mess things up, and he let evil into the world. I don't know. It's yeah, I don't know.
He did let it in for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. From Anna Ash, you cannot reproduce. What is the point of sexual activity, Kaz? Only perversion. What is perversion, Anna Ash? You have to define that word for me, because I don't think you're using it the way I'm using it. Because I don't think that two married old people having sex is perverted.
Oh, what did you think about when I said they should eventually kind of get over it? Like,
no, I don't know. That's messed up, man. When I'm old as hell, I'm still gonna be fucking. I don't care. From JS Urban Adventures says Hake's natural is God's order of natural, not animalistic nature. God made nature before natural in God's eyes is not natural in fallen men's eyes. So didn't God make animal nature? And animals didn't eat of the tree, so how did they fall?
Maybe when I don't know, but I've heard, and I can't say that this is what it is, but when Adam messed up, the earth was cursed, so I don't know.
Yeah, this whole system's fucked, bro. Like this God, man. This guy's a trip, man.
Are you in life? Are you miserable? Are you at peace? Or are you mixed?
Who, me?
Yeah. Are you happy to be alive? Where would you be?
I'm happy to be alive. I'm not miserable. I'm not at peace.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. I don't know what that means. Peace. How could you be at peace? Like, I guess I could just ignore all the reality around me and pretend to be at peace. But like,
I
the world
know.
sucks.
Yeah, a lot of people fall into that type of thinking. I don't think that's the right way
Are you
to
at
do it.
peace?
No.
Hmm.
No.
Based America First says there is objective goodness. We may, however, not be able to precisely define it. Maybe, yeah, I agree, maybe, but I disagree. I hope we can, and I'm going to try to do it, and hopefully, I will get around to making a video about my efforts. Anything?
Do you? I was going to ask. Yeah. Do you pray or meditate, or I think that you examine yourself. I think last time you said that you do really examine yourself, because part of finding the truth is just seeing the truth about yourself.
Yeah,
I think that's like more important than facts out there, or other people's philosophies, if you will.
I just second guess. You know, I'm just constantly second guessing
yourself
myself
and others.
And others. You know, I'm a critic, and I critique myself and everybody else all the time. You know,
Nice.
I'm a hypocrite. I'm a liar. I'm just a human being. You know, I've done shitty things. I'm not any better than anybody else. I'm not smarter than anybody else. I'm just a guy with a fucking shitty ass bachelor's degree talking shit on the internet. You know, I say things matter of factly because I want to be taken seriously, but I do know that I am fallible and I can be wrong, and I'm ready to change my mind when the facts present themselves. You know, but it's not like a formal meditative, you know, type crap. But no,
you just be quiet though.
I write a lot, and when I write, I reread my stuff. I you know, edit it and go back over it, and I just critique it the way I critique everybody else's shit. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting when you get some space from it. It's like it wasn't even you. You forget that you wrote it, and it doesn't. And sometimes it doesn't even necessarily sound like something that you would write. Yeah. At least that's how when I come across stuff that I've done.
What I really want to do is critique my videos, but like,
nice.
There's nothing cringier than listening to yourself.
I know
on video, man. Like, it's horrible. It's like masturbation, but like in public.
I rarely, yeah, I know. I rarely go back and watch my stuff. Sometimes I will like hear the beginning of my show, and sometimes I'm actually entertained. I don't know if that makes me narcissistic or what, but I'm actually like, wow, this was actually kind of interesting or fun. But I don't know.
I am totally, I admit I am a narcissist to at least some degree, because I mean, you have to be a narcissist to some degree to open your mouth on the internet. Like, how could you not be? Like,
True.
Like, how full of yourself do you have to be to fucking think that you're like, I literally broke down the other day with this case of imposter syndrome, because like, who the fuck am I? Why am I sitting here talking to people trying to share my opinions on the internet? What the fuck is going on? This is ridiculous. Like, it's preposterous. It really is. Like, why is anybody listening? It's ridiculous, you know.
How do you know James Coons?
I reached out to him to do a debate a long time ago, and I don't even remember like how the whole thing started, but like I just offered to help him out, and
nice, man,
he accepted. So
that's cool.
His debates are perfectly in line with my philosophical vision of what the world needs to be like. If you understand what I'm saying.
Just straight up people speaking their minds and going at it with each other.
Yeah, having open dialogue and discussion, people being able to share their opinions, and, you know, people being able to critique each other and re-critique it with the recorded conversations that you can go back over. You know, this meta conversation that we're having, it's just, I think it helps move us all towards truth.
Nice. That's cool.
Yeah, I'm fully invested in that.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Let's see. JS Urban Adventures. Oh, yeah, that. Anna came back and said, perversion is to change something from what is normal or right. Normal. So just changing something from what is normal is perverted. So if it is normal to own slaves or to beat your wife or to beat your children and you change that, you're a pervert. Right?
I don't know. I would say, I don't know. It's hard to come up with what's considered normal, but
normal is just not a good word. But right, we could leave that there.
I do like the word normal though, because it is a jarring word. It hits at people's
it's
egos.
an ad populum fallacy. You can't appeal to what you can't equate what is right to what is popular, because popularity is the road to hell, dude. Come on,
right?
Like, you know,
yeah.
like,
But I don't think that she's agreeing with about what's popular, what's typical. You know.
Yeah, she's
for
saying
being normal.
she means right. I'm gonna just
Yeah.
be charitable and just leave it at right.
I'm telling you though, I like normal because it's a shocking word. It's kind of like a child's word. And you know how children will say something to you that about you that you've accepted as fine, or don't really see yourself or whatever. They'll call you fat or ugly. They'll say something, and it's like a shocking word. And that shock can, even if you can intellectually like muddy the waters with what normal is and all these exceptions and things like that, it's still a jarring word. And sometimes the simple, straight to the point, jarring word that may seem like offensive or imperfect, not intellectually rigorous, is better than the perfectly elaborated way of saying things. Do you follow what I'm saying? I'm trying to say that the blunt force, ham-fisted, direct way that people talk in common parlance is sometimes more effective than the perfectly articulated thing.
Effective to doing what?
Effective to awakening people to, oh yeah, you know what? This is wrong sometimes. Or, oh yeah, oh my gosh, that kid just pegged, got just, man, that word is so perverted now. Just caught me, I'm ugly or whatever. But you know, that kid got me. You know how kids will like attack your ego. I don't know if you ever witnessed it happening to somebody else or happening to each other. A simple truth can cut through the clutter.
I mean, in my personal life, I've never seen normal as to be used as anything but a tool to hurt people that are atypical in some kind of way. I've never seen it to be used to help people to be good in any kind of way. Like,
I can understand that for sure. There are people who say it with evil intentions or with an evil spirit to hurt others, but sometimes I think people can say it with a right spirit, and it will penetrate and hurt maybe the ego, but sometimes that ego needs the hurt and the shock to break them away. And that's partly why I say that this gay is okay push is to I don't know if I made that point actually, to shield people from the truth, or to shield people from knowing that something is wrong here. You follow what I'm saying? I'm saying that they're making children, they're taking away the freedom of speech of the Christians who are saying gay is wrong in certain social media circles, for example. They don't want any light to come in to it because they've seen that light be used as a bludgeon or whatever. That's the excuse anyway, to shock these people back to reality. Shock them with like a simple, hard truth that they're wrong.
I mean, we can cherry pick extremists on both sides, right?
Yep.
We can find right wingers who want to shut down free speech and kill everybody who has anything to do with the left whatsoever, and we can do the same on the right. I mean, on the left and the right, right? But I mean, I think that the vast majority of people on the left just want to have open dialogue. We want to change people's minds on the right and bring you all into the fold
You
with
think
logic.
So? I don't know.
That's what I'm trying to do. Like, I don't want to shut you up at all. That's why you're here.
Right.
You're here
No,
because I don't want to shut you up. I want to talk to you and hopefully change your mind.
But you
or
yeah.
if you're actually factually totally right, change my mind.
Right. No, but I don't know if you might be right. It might be most people who are on the left, because a lot of people are reasonable or whatever, or have some semblance of reasonableness in them. But what I'm saying is the agenda out there, and you see it on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, which is Facebook. There are worldly powerful people who are not for this freedom of speech that you and I are talking about.
Well, I mean, that's interesting, right? That's something that I think the Bible got right. I mean, is the religious in general. I mean, it's not just the Bible, right? I think most religions decry capitalism in some kind of way, don't they? I mean,
maybe so. I don't know.
When Jesus was in the temple and he was turning over the tables for the merchants,
right,
in the church, and he was just like, kicking ass and taking names because they were trying to sell shit off his father's name, quote unquote.
It was the wrong context to be selling stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and there's all kinds of things. I mean, if you talk to my dad, he won't even like acknowledge this at all. But like, clearly, Jesus was not super pro capitalism. But I mean, the worldliness that you're talking about is just this greed, right?
I feel that there may be some greed to it, because there is a money to be made, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, like when Twitter wants to shut you up, right? It's not really because they care if you are pro or anti-gay. They just don't want a bunch of people who disagree with you to hurt their bottom line, right?
Right. But there's more than that. I think it's more than just money that motivates people. And I think Jesus was for people working and exchanging their goods, but capitalism is like a form of freedom, and you can't have that freedom without like some morality. But I would say that there's also an ideology and an agenda that a lot of these employees, and sometimes the employees are worse than the higher ups, and the employees are the squeaky wheel, and they push the higher ups around. And these ideological people who are not necessarily money oriented, they're their ego ideology. It's their religion to be pro, although the LGBT thing, for example.
You really think that if the vast majority of Americans suddenly said that they were anti-LGBTQ, that they wouldn't just flip on a dime?
I don't know, but with this hasn't been democratically done. A lot of this stuff, it was, for example, the same-sex marriage thing, it was done. The state of California voted against it, same-sex marriage, in 2008, and then the Supreme Court of the United States overruled all that in 2012 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been by hook or by crook. They will force this on, without a doubt. I think that that there are people who are ideologically motivated by their ego and not just money oriented. And a lot of these people get into HR aspects of the corporate world and stuff like that. There's a lot more corruption and evil than just money.
No, I mean, I would have to concede that there are certainly people that are ideologically motivated, and then, things happen from there.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Oh man, we do have a lot of questions here.
Nice.
None of them are super chats because I don't have 1,000 subscribers.
Oh yeah, you're not. Yeah.
Hopefully I get 100 tonight.
Yeah.
Maybe. Where am I? Esoteric says God sent his son to straighten up the world, like JLP said, from the OT mess of killing and sacrificing.
Maybe that may be his answer for your Old Testament horror story. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, didn't work. So try again, God. Try again. Willie Pal, I used to study the Bible with Jehovah's Witnesses. Those guys are the craziest Christians out there. In some ways, yeah, sure. Willie Pal says, Kaz, just look at the intricacies of life. Come on, don't be so hard-headed. I'm not sure what you mean. Let me look at his last one. Oh, that doesn't inform me. Okay.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Is your father or your mother more religious?
Oh, I don't know. They're both religious.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Interesting.
More.
I find that oftentimes the mothers will be more into it and the father will turn Christian or start to go to church just to get with her sometimes.
I guess my mother is more faithful, like not faithful as in like I am faithful to my wife or something like that, right? Faithful as in full of faith. Kind of religious. And my father is more I'm religious for my logical reasons.
Okay.
Quote unquote.
All right.
But yeah, they both, I would say, are, I don't know, I could not give you a one is more or less than the other.
And they were they both raised Jehovah's Witnesses, or they became?
No, they both joined shortly before no, that's not true. They were both pulled into it by their exes.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the exes that they were married to before they got married.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I think something like that. I know that's the case for my mom. I'm not sure about my dad, but he definitely got pulled into it by getting talked into it.
Right.
Yeah, the Jehovah's Witnesses know the Bible through and through.
Yeah.
They have their own versions of the Bible. It's slightly different, but it's by and large the same. But they know it through and through. They know it better than most Christians of other persuasions do, and so they can beat you over the head with that. And yeah, that's how it works. Let's see. Anna Ash, Kaz, you do not find divine evidence without, you find it within. How do I do that? Sounds like something. No, I won't even say that.
Do you take quiet time, just being quiet, or like take a day like completely off?
Take a day completely off?
Yeah, like you know how the Christians and the Jews and others take like a Sabbath, and they're just quiet.
No,
you don't. No days off.
No, I like to be productive.
Yeah,
in some capacity. You know, we have kids. I have a son who has a disability. There's always something to do. My wife needs me. Like I'm not going to sit on my ass. Fuck that. There's always something to do. Let's see. What do you think about Jesse? She's asking me, what do I think about Jesse? What do I think about Jesse? Well, I don't want to talk about somebody who's not here. I just think that he's misguided. And I think the same about Hake, of course. But I think that everybody is misguided in some kind of way. So it's not saying much. I just think that we're all people and we all just need to talk and hopefully find the truth together. That's all I'm going to say.
Nice.
Based America first. Living wrong and being wrong about data may be two different things. Yes, that's true. Based America first. The Bible is mostly a record of historical events. More or less.
I think as opposed to saying this happened and this was God's will. Is that what he's saying?
As opposed to Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I guess that's a good reading of it. Yeah, it's like, you know, when you write a story. Here's a point I was trying to make to my father that he doesn't get. Right. Everybody who tells any kind of a story is the god of that story. If I tell
Yeah.
you a story right now, I'm the god of that story. I control everybody in that. I'm the alpha and the omega of that story. So the Bible is a collection of stories, and all of those stories were written by a man. That man, whoever wrote those stories, whoever told it the first time, and all the people who had anything to do with that, those are all real gods of those stories who had complete control of it. So when you tell me that this miracle happened or whatever, right? Blah, blah, blah. I have no idea if that was a real, actual divine creature or just a dude saying it in a story. You
Yeah.
know? Because like
Makes
I'll tell
sense.
you a story right now about all kinds of magical shit, and it doesn't mean anything, right?
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes you can like glean principles from like what actually happens in the story,
Yeah. Sometimes,
as opposed to like saying you have to believe that this actually happened the way that I am saying that this is what it's saying. Because there's a
Yeah.
lot of people that totally disagree on what the Bible is actually saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. See, Jehovah's Witnesses, like a lot of other sects, are fundamentalists. You know, they take a very literal reading of the Bible in some way or another.
Mm-hmm.
And there are others, like, you know, Catholics or whatever. They don't do that. And I get browbeaten sometimes by some Christians on certain platforms. They say that I'm too literal, that I shouldn't do that, right? As an atheist. And I just want to know, what is the biblical basis for that viewpoint? Where in the Bible does it say, don't take the Bible literally?
Yeah.
You know,
It doesn't really say how to take the Bible, at least not the whole Bible. Because even where the places that it says all scripture is God breathed, what part of the Bible was it referring to, if it was referring to a specific part of it? So there's all kinds of, like, people jump to conclusions. People will call it the word of God, which it never calls itself that.
yeah.
You know,
Some people say Jesus is the word of God.
Right. Yeah. Because John 1 or the first chapter of John.
In the beginning, there was the
like
Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God.
Right.
Blah blah blah. Yeah.
And they interpret that into being something that they may not really know what they're talking about.
Or maybe the person who wrote it had no idea what they were talking about. All right. I agree with Hunter on one point. Being homosexual does not just mean same-gender anal sex, but rather all same-gender sexual activity. Y'all chill out. God. Yeah. Go ahead.
You want me to respond to it? I don't think that there is a being homosexual. I think that is a perversion that people get into, and people calling themselves this or that. Like JLP will frequently say, you're not an alcoholic. That's something that you got into and you can't help yourself. Or you're not a homosexual. That's something that you got into in your fallen state. You're not this and that. Because people identify with something and they're kind of stuck in it, or they take a pride in it, or we don't know who we are.
Well, I mean, alcoholics don't take pride in their alcoholism.
True. But they get stuck in their alcoholism. They'll call themselves that. And
they have to do that to manage it. At least that's how the AA model works. I mean,
right.
I don't know if that's how you have to do it to actually beat it, but that's just how that model works.
Yeah, and so he differs with the AA people on that. That's not who you are. Don't call yourself something. Don't name it and claim it, because you're right. Some people call themselves something and they're ashamed of it, or they think that it's wrong, or they call themselves something and they think that it's right or great, and then that can be stripped away, and like with a brain injury or whatever. That's not who you are. That's something that you're into.
See, like, I disagree with that, right? Like the thing, like hypocrisy, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're all hypocrites. Would you agree to that?
Yeah.
Right. So when I see something hypocritical in you, right, and I call you a hypocrite, right, what's your reaction to that?
Usually I think that I would tend to get kind of defensive.
Right. See, and that's wrong, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
if you are either A, you are being a hypocrite, or B, you're not, right? Only two
Right.
options, right?
Yeah.
So if you are being a hypocrite, then you should not be defensive. You should analyze yourself and correct yourself, right?
Yeah.
And if you're not, then you should tell me you're not, and I should fix myself, right?
Yeah.
And either way, we should be analyzing ourselves and be less hypocritical, right? So
Right.
I feel like when we call each other hypocrites, it shouldn't be this horrible negative thing where we just react viscerally. Like, if you call me a hypocrite, I should just accept that as a natural, normal criticism of one human being to another,
Right.
and vice versa. If I'm telling you, hey, Hake, you're being a hypocrite right now, that should just be like, hey, quit being a dude, man. Like,
right.
What's the big deal? Like, we're all hypocrites.
Yeah, hypocrites and liars, those are very useful words. But those are words that you can kind of see and correct and overcome it. But I think that the trap that the people who call themselves homosexuals, or people who are being called homosexuals, or the people who call themselves perverts, or people who call themselves alcoholics or addicts and stuff like that, the mind is so powerful. I know that, I imagine that you've seen studies on how powerful the mind is to change your situation, to overcome different things, to do stuff that you never thought you could do. The mind is quite powerful to hamper you or to free you. Or to just at least not hold on to something that you don't have any business holding on to as part of who you are. Because it's part of the search for truth. Calling somebody a hypocrite is calling them to come out closer to the truth, to the true them, and calling somebody a liar, same thing. Whereas people calling themselves LGBT or calling themselves alcoholics, maybe even calling yourself a hypocrite, may allow you to like accept it or feel like you can't overcome it.
Well, for example, like hypocrisy or alcoholism, perhaps, right?
Yeah.
A lot of these people literally cannot overcome it. If what you mean by overcome it is be totally free of any inclination to ever be a hypocrite or drink alcohol ever again, right?
Right.
But if what you mean by overcome it is to be able to live a happy and productive life with these inclinations in mind, then you can overcome it.
Yeah, I would say more like the latter, because with sex and food and temptations, part of being wise is knowing that you're not as strong-willed as you think you are, and you don't go into a temptation. Like, you don't go to a place where you'll be tempted, for example. So you know that you're weak. You don't say, "Oh, I'm not gonna call myself an alcoholic anymore, but I'll still hang out around my drinking friends or whatever."
Yeah,
and
but see,
think that you're going to be able to fight the temptation.
But the only difference here is, though, right? Well, I get like hypocrisy and alcoholism, right? When I'm being a hypocrite, I'm espousing things that I'm saying are good and then not acting like that or whatever, right? I'm setting a bad example. I'm just putting out negativity in the world, right? But when two men or two women or whatever decide to have consensual sex in private, who else does that affect besides those two?
I don't know. Like, it, in some different ways, the things that you do affect your mindset, and in a way that I can't define, and in the way that you don't know what you may affect in the things that you do in private, you know. So that's, I don't know if you follow my point there.
Well,
So
I mean, you're saying that there could be hidden variables.
Yeah, there could be ways that you are affecting the world,
but you don't know of any that you could name, or do you?
None come to mind.
Okay.
Specifically, outright, like that necessarily will happen. But I do know that what you do in your life affects your mindset, affects your life.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's undeniable. But I think that if you can acknowledge that you aren't articulating a specific harm that affects other people, and you're appealing to a hypothetical harm, I think that I can leave that at that for now.
Yeah, I would say that that's not so much what I have a problem with. I do say that I do still think that it is not something to accept as right. And I
understand you
I
feel
think
that
it is wrong. And pushing everybody to accept it as right and call these people quote unquote married and having them be adopting kids, I think it's a misguided, all too eager to accept, notwithstanding all the studies that he cited.
Well, I mean,
type of mindset.
One could be, hypothetically at least, too eager to accept something that they should accept, right?
Yeah, true.
And then also, on the other hand, somebody could be hesitant to accept something that they shouldn't accept. And then also the other way around, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
All the combinations of that concept, right?
Yep.
So, I mean, we are, I mean, you don't believe this. I'm, atheist, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But to me, we're all just apes, born of apes, born into this world, screaming and kicking, clawing our way in the dark, trying to figure out what the fuck is going on. So, I mean, are we too eager to accept this? Maybe. But is it the right thing? That's a separate question. And
yeah,
I hear your arguments about eagerness, and I separate those out from the ones about whether they're right or wrong.
Yeah.
And the ones that about they were right or wrong, I'm still finding them to be compelling, that they're right.
Here's another one. I support kind of ad hominem arguments. When you look at the people who are pushing at the forefront, pushing this stuff, they're some of the worst people, like the most dishonest and malicious people, like, Joe Biden. He was for same-sex marriage before Obama publicly said that he was for it. I think prior to even his first election, we knew that he was for it. But the GLAAD people, the gays, was originally Gays and Lesbians Against Defamation, or whatever it was, Alliance Against Defamation. They're kind of like the equivalent of the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League. And so they're some of the most anti-free speech people, I think, and kind of vicious towards Christians and stuff. I'm never going to go with that bandwagon. I see this push to accept this as right. And I know this is kind of like the same thing to you, maybe. And these are the worst people in the world. And then I see the people who are not accepting it, guys with there's a whole lot of evil people who are not accepting it, but there's some decent people who are for what's right. And I look at those two sides and I see which side I would like to be on. That's part of it. But also just on the face, even without the Bible or without anything else, it just looks wrong.
Just to be clear, you're saying that you see evil people pushing for the gay agenda, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Right? And you're saying Joe Biden
is one. He's a follower.
The epitome. Or
he's a good example.
Like I'm trying to figure out who exactly can I talk about here.
Take Joe Biden.
Joe Biden.
I don't
he
see
was
him at the
against gay
forefront.
marriage for like the longest time.
Right, I know. Exactly. It's like these phony politicians will sway with the wind. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. The political agenda is a separate thing from the woke agenda. I mean, I don't know who you're going to get to debate you on that. But the political agenda is not the same. Their agenda is power. It doesn't matter if it's woke. It doesn't matter if it's sleep. It's power. You know.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Oh, GLAAD I mentioned. Are you familiar with GLAAD?
No, I'm not. No.
Sorry. Are you familiar with the ADL?
The Anti-Defamation League.
Yeah.
I'm not like I don't follow them. I don't know what they do.
Okay. So ADL, GLAAD, Southern Poverty Law Center are leftist organizations. The GLAAD is supposedly fights for the to protect gays from being defamed, gays and lesbians and LGBT people from being defamed.
Okay.
But and same thing with ADL. ADL protects the Jewish people from being defamed. But in doing that, they end up making enemies and being antagonistic towards people who disagree with them. So they're kind of a militant anti. The GLAAD, for example, is militant anti.
Semites.
Militant Semites. Yeah, that for ADL. Militant. The GLAAD people are militant. They're the radical homosexuals who are forcing this on people who don't want to accept it.
And okay. So maybe that should be our focus on the next conversation. We should look into some specific stuff that GLAAD has done. And you know, it could be the case. It could very well be the case that you convinced me that some of the things that they've done are too far or flat out wrong. I don't think that that's going to convince me that the gayness is wrong. Obviously, that's a non sequitur. But it doesn't mean that we can't agree on other things ancillary to that, right?
Yeah.
There are things that are too far. There are things that are just, outside of the scope, so to speak. But those are all different questions,
Yeah.
Let's breeze through these questions real quick,
All right.
Where we get this from? The Bible is mostly a record. Yeah, read that one. I agree with Hunter. Blah, blah, blah. Got that one. No, saying people are male and female is not quantitative. It is understood that there are exceptions. No. If you don't say there are exceptions, then you are lying. No, I'm sorry. You have to explicitly state that it's a usual. You have to use a qualifier there. If you just say people are male and female, that is a claim in a vacuum. There's no qualifier there. You have made an emphatic claim there. People are either male or female. There's no room for anything else in that sentence. So if there are exceptions, then you've lied. I'm sorry.
I would say the intersex people are usually, from what I've understood, they are given a choice to or it's chosen for them which direction they go toward, because we tend toward the binary,
Yeah, we do.
We tend toward one or the other, and so those people are even though it's maybe unclear because they have both organs, they're pushed to take on one or the other usually. Nowadays, I think it may be left open, which I don't know if that's wise. I don't think it's wise.
Yeah, you just said something that made me think of something I wanted to just say real quick. Like, let me just read this real quick. Every nation in every region now has this. No. Crap.
While you look for that, if I can mention you said about unqualified statements. I say that if it's an unqualified statement, it doesn't mean all. So like if you say, I don't know, if you say women are liars, well,
If
I
you
guess
say
it
women
all
are
is all-
liars, that's a lie.
If you say women are liars, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're saying all women are liars. For
It
example,
does.
okay, when Trump said they're not sending their best, Mexico is not sending their best. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some I assume are good people. Even if he hadn't said
is a qualifier.
right, but that's only good people. Even if he hadn't said and some if there are rapists and drug dealers among those people, then he can say they are this. He's not saying, he didn't say all, so you can't. It's unfair in the common parlance to assume that he means all, and I don't even think that mathematically speaking it means all.
No. Like when he says they're sending rapists, right?
Mm-hmm.
That there's no indication of how many rapists there are.
Exactly. So you can't assume that it's all or
no.
Right. You have to assume it's two or more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it just all that has to establish to make that a true statement is that one rapist is sent.
Right. Exactly.
Right? Now, I don't know that Mexico is sending anyone. You know, so I can't say that is a fact. But when you say women are liars, right? There's no that's all women. Women is a word that means all women.
Not necessarily, though. I think it means that a general. It's kind of a general statement. They generally are liars, or a disproportionate amount of women are liars is usually what that means. Or maybe all women. I think maybe all women are liars, to be honest. But for the sake of argument, pretend that it's not all. It doesn't mean to. If you say women are liars, it doesn't mean that all women are liars. It doesn't mean that that's what you're saying.
It may not mean that to you. It may not mean that. It may not be what you're trying to convey. But the words themselves that is the meaning of those words, right? Like if you send those words to an alien and give them a dictionary, that's how they're going to translate it.
It can be translated that way. You can say, oh yeah,
you're relying on unstated premises.
But it's a false assumption. It can mean all, or it can mean not all.
The false assumption is presuming that the person that is hearing the message that you're sending will infer that women is not the set of all women. It is a subset of some women.
Yeah, you shouldn't assume that they'll take it one way or the other.
Right. You should specify. Now, if you say Mexico is sending rapists, should the person receiving that message assume that Mexico is sending the set of all rapists?
No, he should.
Do all rapists live in Mexico? No, they could not physically send all rapists anywhere because all rapists are not in Mexico. So that's just incoherent on its face. So that's just not possible, right? Therefore, you cannot assume that Mexico is sending all rapists. You have to be sending some.
Right. True. That's why I felt that the overreaction to Trump's statement was A, either dishonest, or B, emotional, because a reasonable person would know he did not mean they're all rapists. No.
Well, I mean, the problem is the president of the United States doesn't just speak to the United States people. He was running for president, the United States. Yeah, but he speaks for the people of the United States and to the people of the world.
Yeah.
And they don't speak English. Not usually, not always, not any qualifier you want to do, right?
Yeah.
Only sometimes, right? So if they're going to hear the president speaking about any people, he's representing us, he has to use the correct qualifiers, or he's making us all sound like, and I mean all, you know.
To me, it was a perfect statement, though, because we've had problems that have been unacknowledged and kind of hidden. Honestly, if you read Ann Coulter's book, Adios America, it's like the media they go out of their way to call them Arizona man does such and such. They won't say immigrant because there is this politically correct thing that hides the truth. So for me, that was a perfect statement because it it was true, because
I mean, yeah, just look at how they report on anything like well, I don't know.
it was, to me, it was so refreshing, and I don't care how the world took it.
Yeah.
I was glad that he stood by it. It was one of the very refreshing things for me.
They make
Yeah.
a point of highlighting race whenever it's an altercation with the police because they want to stoke division, because
Right.
that's sales. That's sales for them. It's all about
Yeah.
money. But yeah, let's. Oh man, we got so many things to talk about. I don't know. We should just end it. I don't know. Let's see. No, I want to address everybody that said something to us, because
Cool.
I want to be nice. Let's just see where we were. The brain physically controls the body, but the soul controls the mind. You believe that?
I don't know what the soul is. I don't know. It's a big
Thank you, Esoteric.
It's a mystery. Thank you, Esoteric. Right on. It's a mystery to me.
Yeah, I don't know what a soul is. Yeah. Dean Thomas Triplet says, ask Hake where he gets his truth from. Where do you get your truth? Calvin Klein?
I don't have my truth. So I hear true things, and oftentimes I'll repeat stuff that I hear that I believe to be true. And I've read a lot of the Bible over and over again, and a lot of that rings true. And in my life, I just call things as I see them, if I'm actually seeing them, as I think I see them, let's say.
Okay. Exactly, Hake. This is from
Nice.
Exactly, Hake. You don't know anything. You don't study anything. You don't read anything but your fiction book. And yet you think you mandate life to everyone else.
Freedom of speech. And I mean, I was wondering if that was people's reaction, or some form of that, maybe a lighter form of that, was people's reaction to my debate with, I'm curious to hear how people thought that I did in talking with the Hunter Avallone today.
Gotcha. Anna Ash says, Kaz, the exception makes the rule of normal, but keep it as an exception. Otherwise, the exception doesn't make the rule any longer. Yeah, you know, I can dig that. Yeah, I mean, you have to state this is what is usual, and then there are atypicalities and exceptions. But if you don't include those, then include those atypicalities and exceptions in the rule, then you're lying. But you should just say in that rule, these are atypicalities and exceptions. That's not the norm. So yeah,
I don't know if you're lying, but you're just you just haven't gotten to that.
Well, yeah, I should be specific in saying that a lie is an intentional occlusion of the truth, not a accidental or incidental. It could be just, you know, misinformation or something like
Yeah.
that. From a okay, here we go again. No, Hake, we don't pray because we actually use our brains and cognitive abilities to guide our actions and decisions in life. We don't need an imaginary friend to whisper in our ear. I'm a human being with a brain and sense of humanity. I don't need fictional books, and I don't force fiction on others.
Interesting. People do force things on one another, and I think that's the way of the world. And that's why you see when Christians aren't dominating, the Christians are getting dominated. I think that the brain itself was designed to require rest and quiet, and not this constant distraction that we're living in today. That's all I can say to that.
Got it. I love reading other people's questions, I gotta say.
Yeah, it's fun.
Anna Ash. No, I read that one. And that one. So glad religion is going away. Stats for religiosity are dropping because people are becoming more educated and learning to think for themselves.
I've heard that. I think that is happening because the Christians have been weak, so they've had weak arguments and led weak lives, and so people are throwing out the baby with the bathwater. They're throwing it away because they haven't seen a good example. There's no light in the world, seemingly.
Okay. And from Firefly 90 says, does Hake honestly believe all thoughts are lies all the time? Does Hake honestly believe all thoughts are lies all the time? Does Hake believe in free will?
That's something that
you say
JLP
that?
says. JLP says all thoughts are all lies all the time.
All thoughts are all lies all the time?
Yeah.
So if I have the thought God is real, that's a lie?
Yeah, in a sense, that's a lie because you have some idea about it, that you think that you like. There's
Okay.
it's something to consider. I think he has started to qualify practical thoughts like, oh, I need to make my coffee, or I need to go to bed now, I'm tired, or whatever. Those are practical thoughts, but thoughts that you live by, like, I don't know, I can't come up with an example. Like I'm a homosexual or type of thing. That's a lie. Or God is love. Like you just said, people don't know what love is, so they'll repeat that and they'll think they're wise or something, and they'll live by something, some idea of love that they have, or some idea of God that they have, and they're living a lie. So that's what he means by that. And do we have free will? It's kind of a mystery to me, but I haven't seen either in the Bible or in practical life where anybody's actually free in their will. It's interesting. I do totally believe in, I think I believe in responsibility. I believe in responsibility as like a man and as conservative and things like that, and holding people responsible. I think that helps guide them in the right way. But I don't really believe in free will. No.
Interesting. You're a liberal. Holy shit, you're a liberal. What the fuck? Okay, here we go. Did Hake change his mind about the Bible after Jesse's teachings? In old episodes, he used to be more Bible focused. I wonder if he feels pulled away from what he knew.
No, I remember looking into the Bible before I ever heard of Jesse. I started attending Jesse's church services in 2007. But prior to that, I was wondering about what is real and what the Bible is, because I've heard people call it God's word, which is never something that I called it. So I've never really been into like, I would reference the Bible frequently, and to this day I do, but I don't see it as what a lot of the people make it into be. And interestingly, the people who make it as this authority, they interpret it into saying the exact opposite of what it's actually saying, when you read it on its face. For example, most Christians think that you continue to sin, but the Bible says you no longer sin. So they'll interpret they'll interpret something that it says and make it so that you continue to sin. So I find that the people who are, the Bible is the truth, is the only truth, it's God's word, are just as much of hypocrites as anybody.
We all are.
Yeah.
All right. Rockin' Woodworks. Question. So there's no such thing as gay, and I've heard him say there's no such thing as racism. Is there such a thing as race then?
Yeah, I think there's such a thing as race, because we all have different phenotypes, if you will, right? And we fit into these different groups, and that's what tempts the people to have these suspicions when they're mixed together in different diverse cultures. So, right, I don't believe that there's racism, and I don't believe that this gay thing is or should be an identity. People say, oh, you hate me for who I am. First of all, you shouldn't hate anybody, but it's not who they are. And same with the racism thing. It's kind of assigning It's assigning the outward appearances as the root issue, whereas the root issue is the hypocrisy that you talk about, the false judgment.
So I don't want to derail us because we're getting so close to the end of these questions. Fuck, man.
Mention it and we can save it for later.
Fuck. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We're gonna run the rest of these. The next time we talk, we're gonna talk about that. Okay.
All right.
All right. Chim Chad says, if you hate one, you hate all. If you don't love all, you love none.
That, to me, the first time I heard that, it rang true. Partly because either you're of actual love, like you are of actual patience. Like a patient person doesn't run out of patience. He may see a time to stop putting up with something, but he's still patient in his putting the clamp down. So same thing with love versus hate. You can pretend to be a kind person and then it breaks down, and that's how most people are. I don't think most people have any actual real love.
You don't think people have real love?
Yeah. Like, I think people are nice.
Okay, so that's another conversation we gotta have. We gotta talk about what the fuck love is. You're just trying to have us talk. All right. Come on, Kaz, from Willie Pal. Come on, Kaz, you will change your mind if you give me some evidence. Yeah, I will. Jacob34 says, I like these late night interviews with Hake. Kaz is cool too. Very respectful. Thank you, Jacob. I'm trying to be. I hope I have succeeded.
Nice. Yeah.
Jessica Waiwas says, Kaz, very sorry. I know this is pointless and off topic at best, but Kaz, please, I want to know what vape device you are using. Thanks. Oh, man. Vapresso. All right. Firefly 90 at Kaz. What does Hake still sin? Do you?
Yeah, I think
Jesse
so.
says he doesn't.
Yeah, Jesse says he doesn't. I think I still do.
Man. Jesse says he doesn't sin.
Right.
What?
He says sin is not these vices that we're told are the sins. The sin is what drives you to do those vices. The sin is the anger, judgment, playing God.
You know who Joseph Smith is, right?
Yeah, he's the Mormon founder, right? Something like that.
What do you think about Mormonism?
I don't know much about it. I grew up in where the only other whites in my neighborhood and school were Mormon.
Dog, do you have Hulu?
I'm not sure. I know somebody with Hulu, I'm sure.
All right, go to their house, and there's this show. This is not an ad. I'm not getting paid for this. Under the Banner of Heaven on Hulu. Watch that show. Really easy, real simple, very entertaining. Right. Really fucked up.
All right.
Okay. Recognize, or at least just try to think in your head when you're watching this, like, what is the difference between this dude, Joseph Smith, and Moses, and Martin Luther, and the popes, and every other dude?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, man, starting a church is beta male shit. Look, there's the men who can work and gain resources and get mates that way. There's the men who are super strong and will just take their mates. And then there's the men who have to figure other shit out. And those are the men that start religions.
All right. Interesting.
All right, all right, man. Jacob said that. Jessica said that. And the last one of the night before we wrap it up, JJ Money says, Hake up late tonight. Is it his birthday? Is it your birthday again?
It's a meme. It's my birthday. In fact, we're
Happy
at the
birthday.
18th. Thank you. It's going to be my birthday again in less than 2 months.
Oh, yeah. Well,
my real birthday. But anyway.
You know, I don't have a fucking sign off.
Okay.
I don't have nothing to say. I'm not going to say.
I found your IG. I think you have. Doesn't Factitionalist or something like that have an Instagram?
Yeah,
I feel like you posted somewhat recent. Somehow I came across it. I don't even know exactly how, but I followed it, and a couple of I saw some interesting statements and things on there. It's Pretty
Yeah, I
cool.
make my own memes when I have the inspiration sometimes.
Nice.
But yeah, I got my Instagram, I got Twitter, I got a fucking Facebook group. All that shit.
Okay, nice.
So anybody's watching want to argue, we can go at it. And this factitionalist network thing is not really supposed to be me. Okay, it's supposed to be open for people who want to have their own shows and do their own thing. I'm trying to be a producer. I'm going to be the Rupert Murdoch of truth and facts.
Nice.
So KontentionZ is my show, and I'm looking for other creators who want to be part of it. So that's what
Right
I'm doing,
on,
man. So yeah, that's the last question. We're gonna move it on out of here, man. You ready to call it a night?
Yeah, I enjoyed the conversation. I appreciate the after show, man.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. It's a great help. You know, you were here before when you had whatever 85 subscribers. You know how much of a help it is.
Oh
So
yeah.
thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming and having this conversation with me and putting up with having your views challenged and whatnot. So thank you so much.
No, I love it. All right, man. Have a good night.
Thank you. You too. And to everybody who's watching right now, thank you all for joining me. I hope you guys come back for the next one. I'm looking to set up a conversation with, I don't know, well, she said yes. So I'm going to just say it. Kay Fellows and I are going to set up a conversation at some point about abortion, looking to set up some other things in the near future. So yeah, this channel is going to get more active. So subscribe and like it if you feel like doing that. And y'all have a great night.
Cool.
Bye.
Take care.